Hello, this is Nick from ReviewOutlaw.com. Today I'm going to be telling you why I sold my ocean boat. ReviewOutlaw.com. New videos every Thursday at 3 p.m. Subscribe today. So this boat is a 35-foot. It's a Monterey. It's the 340 SY or Sport Yacht Edition. It's 2014. Purchased it used. Purchased it with about 145 hours on it. So we really liked the fact that it had low amount of hours. This is our first ocean boat ever purchased. So we went through a broker and they said you need it sea tested. But before you sea test it, because it was out of the water at the time, you need to put a deposit down. So we had to put a $5,000 deposit down just in order to sea trial it and make sure it didn't leak and it actually worked and everything like that, because they sold it in perfect condition, and they sold it as still under warranty, which we thought was very important, because if we thought we had any issues, then we could get it covered in a warranty, and we didn't really know how much money it cost to fix an ocean boat. So we had it sea trialed in March 30th, 2018, and everything checked out. One thing I would have done, if I go back and talk to myself, is I would have had a mechanic actually hook up the computer to look at error code history in the engines themselves. I paid about $800 for a certified sea trial guy to come down and check it all out, but he's not a mechanic and they don't have the tools to look into that. He said everything checked out, it's in perfect condition, cost about $800 for that sea trial test, but in order to get financing, you need someone certified in that to say, hey, the boat's in good working condition, and it can't just be you saying that. So anyway, we purchased it. A couple other features that I really liked is it had dual engines, so if one engine failed, you'd have the other engine to back up. It had joystick control, so it's a big boat. Before that boat, the biggest boat I'd driven was a 24-foot lake boat, and I'm going to compare a lot of this to owning a lake boat. So the only issue we had during the sea trial was the generator. We couldn't, no one could figure out how to turn it on, so we thought it was just our ignorance we got it turned on and it turned itself off, and we thought, well, maybe we just didn't do it right. So we thought, okay, maybe that was just us doing it wrong, but later on we found out there was actually a lot of issues with the generator, and we would constantly have issues for the next year of trying to get that working. We put a lot of time and energy into mechanics, having them look at it, maybe 3-4 different mechanics from different marinas looking at it, and we never ever got that permanently working. It would work for a spell, maybe a couple weeks to a month, but it would constantly fail on us. The other things that we liked is that it was cool look. It had a black look, which a lot of boats don't have that. We did find out that it's hard to maintain that black on the side. You constantly have to wax it, whereas a white boat, you don't, it hides a lot more salt and things like that. But it has a really cool look, which we liked. You can sleep a lot of people in there. It had all the bells, the whistles, TVs, pull-out couches, nice leather. Everything was kept up very well. And because of low hours, we thought, hey, this is a steal. What we didn't realize is because it was about 4 years or 5 years old, if you don't put a lot of hours on the engines, it's actually not too good for a gas engine not to have hours on it. If they just sit there and don't get used, that can be actually worse than using the crap out of them. So that's one thing we found out later on as well. So the main issues kind of started right away. We started getting this Guardian activated issue, which we didn't know what it was. So we called the mechanic, and actually we called the dealer first, and they're like, well, you got to call a mechanic. It could be something you hid or something like that. We bought it as is. They said it might be covered in a warranty. So we called the mechanic. Of course, nothing that we did on this boat ever was covered. Nothing was covered in a warranty. It's kind of maybe jaded towards boat warranties that pretty much nothing will be covered, because nothing that we replaced on all the engine and parts was ever covered. But it wasn't even that. It's just that you lose faith in it working. So Guardian Activate would slow the RPMs of one of the engines, so you'd have to put back about 6 miles per hour. It was a good thing that we had that second engine, and that made me feel good, but you didn't want to bring people out on the boat in case you lose an engine. So the first couple of months, we're just constantly fighting with issues. Mechanics like, oh, it's all fixed. We'd go out, first 30 minutes would be fine. Then maybe about an hour into the trip, you'd lose that second engine, and then no matter what you did, you couldn't get it back on. So that made you lose faith in it, and you didn't want to really bring people out until you had that issue fixed. So it took maybe 5-6 times, or a month and a half, 2 months, for the mechanic to finally figure out and get it working properly. And then we did some trips to Block Island, Martha's Vineyard, Boston, just around our area in Rhode Island and Mass, to get comfortable and familiar with the boat. It was a much bigger boat than we had used before, so we kind of needed to understand how the wind would affect it, and the tides and the current and docking and things like that. One issue with navigating a larger boat is that Rhode Island and New England in general has very tight places, so it's hard to get in and out. So some of the marinas, you have to be very technical driving, and if the current's rough, the wind's rough, it's not that great. Not a lot of the docks are free for a boat of that size. So if you go to Newport, for example, you have to pay by hour. And then some of the docks that are free can't hold a boat of that size, so they'd be fine for like a 20-foot, but a 35-foot, it's not going to hold it. And then other ones that would hold it, you go to the dock on the weekends, and there'd already be full with 2, 3, or 4 boats, so you couldn't fit your boat there. And we weren't comfortable enough to anchor it or know where to anchor at that point, so there wasn't too many places that we could go, unless you're going to go like stay overnight, and you could check in on Dockwah and get a marina, or like an overnight stay. But if you wanted to just go somewhere in the day, that wasn't too many options. There isn't as many options for restaurants either, compared to as you go down the intercoastal towards Florida. You have a lot more options as far as bigger docks, much easier to navigate. Just the New England area itself is not very great for a boat of that size, depending on what you wanted to do with it. So our thought was, let's use it like a condo on the water. Let's bring this boat down the intercoastal. We figured out the first couple months how to drive it. Let's bring it down the coastal, use it like a condo on the water, and fly back and forth from Rhode Island down to Florida. It'll be a great adventure. So we did that, and I have another video that documents that whole trip. And actually the whole trip from Rhode Island to Jacksonville was great. No engine issues the whole time down there. It was a really fun trip. We made great time. Engine held up great. Everything was going pretty good. Once we went from Jacksonville down to West Palm Beach, that's when we started having issues. So first thing is we hit a log that was submerged under the water and ripped one of the props off. Then we started realizing, wow, it was really hard to get someone down to actually fix it with the prop. We actually ended up having to do it all ourselves. So we learned on the fly how to replace a prop. But it kind of made you aware of, like, okay, if you need a mechanic, sometimes they're a month out as far as being able to work on it. And a lot of them didn't want to work on inboard outboards. They wanted to work on stern drive, inboards only or diesel only. So having someone who could work on that particular engine was a bit hard to find. So after getting it to West Palm Beach, we took it over to Bahamas, and again I have a whole video chronologing that. And while in Bahamas, it ran pretty good. I mean, we were having some issues regarding activation error during the beginning of the day, and then you just keep riding it, and it would go away. So it was one of those like intermittent issues, which are always very hard to fix. Kept riding it, went around all the Bahamas. It was a very expensive trip, gas. I mean, to fill up this boat, on average, it's going to be like $500 a trip, or a fill, because it held 220 gallons. And compared to a lake boat, you pay a lot more for the same unleaded gas. That you can pay $1 to $2 more per gallon, just because it's on the ocean and there's additional taxes and things like that. Where a lake boat, generally you fill up your own gas, you go to the gas station, and it's the cheapest you can get. So on the way back from Bahamas, we actually lost one of the engines. It was supposed to be a 3-hour trip, ended up being a 12-hour trip on the way back from Bahamas. Had nothing but engine issues. Some of that was due to we had gotten bad gas in Bahamas, and it had gotten into and just caused massive issues with our fuel filter, and more Guardian activation errors, and just a lot of issues The weather started getting bad, the waves started getting big, I started getting sick. We just weren't prepared for the weather really at all. We hadn't had very much sleep because we had just flown in on the red eye and then jumped on. So we're going to bring this boat back to Florida, and there was just massive amounts of issues. So after that last Bahama trip, we were like, you know what? We just don't have the time. We were at that point, we had to winterize it or summerize it. We were going to be, summer was coming here, and we usually stay on the lake in Rhode Island, so we weren't going to be using it in the summer down in Florida. So we had to have it stored. And as far as the hurricanes, you have to get a hurricane hold for the insurance purposes. So have it stored outside the water is something that you want to do, because once the hurricanes hit in Florida, you can't find anywhere to put it. So you have to get a nice safe zone first, and you have to pay per month, just to keep it and store it there, and it loses value each and every minute. And there's things that we knew we didn't like with this particular boat, just the lack of cruise control. It didn't have that. We would like something with a fly bridge, so you have a bit of a breeze in the marinas. Maybe something a little bit bigger. We got comfortable with the 35-foot driving that. And something that didn't have these constant engine issues. Definitely would have spent the extra money and got diesel engines if I would have done it again. It's just so many less issues. You pay less money for gas. It's just more efficient, things like that. So all in all, I'm very happy we purchased the boat, and we had a great experience. I mean, we purchased it with 140 hours. We put over 300 hours on it in less than 1 year. And we actually sold it 2019, April. So we kept it for a little bit less than 1 year. We're right around 1 year. And we used it, twice as much as he did it in 5 years. We did have issues with it. I mean, compared to an ocean boat, lake boats, we had no issues. You just ride it worked great. This particular ocean boat, a lot of guardian activation issues. And when everything was running great, you're on a roller coaster. You're as high as can be. But when it stops working, you just crash right to the ground. And everything's very frustrating. It's very hard to get it worked on and serviced and things like that. So for me, it all comes down to money and time. Did I have the time? At that point, I did, to use it. But if you're not going to use it, just store it somewhere. It's going to lose value each and every year. I say sell it. We did sell it, and we didn't lose that much money compared to if we just held on to it. So it was a great adventure. But if you don't have the money, the time, if you're retired or something like that, I think taking your time cruising up and down the intercoastal, but working. You have to make it work with work and have that time off, and then just the money to keep up with all the mechanic work and upkeep and things like that. It gets very expensive very quickly, and you're spending a lot of time. If you're not spending time enjoying riding the boat, and you're spending all the time in the engine compartment figuring out what's this beep, what's this error, that's really not what you should be doing or what I wanted to be doing. So when you spent more time doing that than actually enjoying it, it was time to sell it. So that's why I sold my ocean boat, was just all the constant engine issues and things like that. I would not buy another Merc Cruiser for sure, and I would definitely stick with diesel, but I will never ever buy another Merc Cruiser engine for the rest of my life. Alright guys, I hope you guys enjoy the video. Check out my other videos where I'm traveling down the intercoastal or going over to Bahamas, or when I first purchased it and I do a walkthrough of it. Feel free to click on all those videos. And if you have any questions, maybe you're looking to purchase an ocean boat and you have some questions for me, feel free to leave in the comments. I love those. Alright, thanks. Hey, I really appreciate you watching this video. If you have time, please give me a thumbs up. Share the video on Facebook or social media, click that subscribe button, and don't forget to hit that bell icon next to the subscribe button so you get a notification when new videos come out. Finally, if you leave me a comment, I love those. Really appreciate it. Have a great day, guys.